Planet, 7.3 billion people, only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Marc's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live. For more information on Marc's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marclainhart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
And good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be in this beautiful, transforming, healing, awakening planet of ours. This is Metaphysical Mocha Mondays. I am your host, Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. Thank you for joining me here today in the Zoom room here on the Intuitive Prospector page. Grab your coffee, grab your tea. Oh, it looks like I spilled a little coffee today, didn't I? I sure did. All right, that's a good thing. I got my heart mug. Going to be talking about science. Going to be talking about the heart. Going to be talking about grace. Going to be talking about forgiveness. Going to be talking about hope. Because there's a lot of hurting and a lot of uncertain out there on this planet and everything that we're going through. So give it just a second for people to get on board. If you are new to the page, let us know where you're from. Good morning to my team. Cheers to you. How are you guys doing? Thanks for being here this morning. And if you want to join the page and join the 31,000 followers now, geez, that's a lot of people for my page. First and foremost, thank you for following any of the work, the shows, my articles, my podcasts. any of the work I do, I'm always appreciative and humble with people that follow my work. But if you want to follow the page, please turn on the like, make sure to turn on the notifications so you can get notifications when I'm live, whether it's in the Intuitive Prospector page, my YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can find me through Patreon, my Patreon community now, which is I set up this year. It's specifically for members, where you get readings, insight behind the scenes with my podcast, Inspired Living Radio. You can follow me on Insight Timer with my free meditations and podcasts over there on Insight Timer. You can ask Alexa to open up Positive Living, and Alexa will open up the Positive Living app and give you daily spiritual tips for your journey each and every day. What else? You can get on my newsletter called Soul Adventures. I'm getting ready to release my newsletter for May with a lot of upcoming stuff, a lot of great stuff coming up. And I just want to say thank you for joining me this morning. If you've never seen Metaphysical Mocha Mondays, I've been on the air for about 3 seasons now. And it's something that I chose to do way back when I was going through a lot of my spiritual journeys, a lot of my spiritual awakening, a lot of my spiritual transformations, a lot of questions. And so I wanted to create a show that's 30 minutes. It's filled with inspiration, encouragement, motivations, thinking outside the box, metaphysics, physics, science, spiritualism, mediumship, psychic. What I just kind of encompass everything into what I call spiritual awesomeness. And it's 30 minutes, and I'm here every Monday morning, or most Monday mornings at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to try to take the show as the weather improves. I'm going to try to take the show down to the Puget Sound and do a show by the water's edge for a nice meditation. But if you're new, welcome. Thanks for joining me. Grab your coffee, grab your tea. Let's move into the magic of the moment. And let's talk about what's going on in society. Like I said, there's a lot going on. Today's message is about hurting and uncertain, but we also have grace and we also have hope. I was listening to a great song before the show started. Some of you may know him. He is been around for a while. His name is Ragin' Bone Man, and there's a song that he sings called Grace. And he talks about the lyrics, and that's kind of what got me thinking. As this works, I pour my coffee and I put my cream in. And when I kind of look at my cream, it's kind of like my coffee crystal ball, if you will. And what I speak to is what's going on with society, what's going on in consciousness, what's going on in the world, and try to bring a perspective, because again, the art of spiritualism is the ability to shift your perspective. And in this song, Ragin' Bone Man, you can find him. He's really popular. I believe he's from England, or maybe he might be Irish or Scottish. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that. But there's a song in there called Grace, and we're one step from grace. And this morning, I just was thinking about everything that has gone on in the world, from these mass shootings. Here in the United States, there's just great divide still with our country. All of these horrible mass shootings that are taking place. Racism is being brought into, our awareness. It's being brought to the surface and needs to be talked about, needs to be addressed, need to work through the pain. The George Floyd case, they're wrapping up for a verdict, so we're going to have some energy around that. This pandemic and the people that believe in science, like myself, I always say believe in science, follow science, but I also believe in metaphysics, which is science beyond our laws of physics. But with this pandemic, we got people that believe in vaccinations, and we have anti-vaxxers. We have people that believe in masks, and we have people that refuse to wear masks, because it's offending their civil liberties or their civil rights or their First Amendment of the Constitution. But if you follow the Constitution, you know that that's not true. I am a constitutionalist, and I follow the Constitution. So it makes me concerned and laugh at the same time. It's funny, but it's not funny with some of the rhetoric and the words and the privileges people believe that they have. And then of course you take the divide in this country. I've long talked about a civil war of ideologies within the United States for over 2 years now. Some people call me crazy, other people call me for advice. I've come to accept that now in what I see in the future, and in my visions and my dreams and my meditations. But there's still more to come. And so if you take everything from politics to pandemics to the vaccinations to racism to civil liberties to mass shootings to uncertainty in the world, there's a lot of hurting and uncertain going on. But as I was listening to this song this morning by Ragin' Bone Man, he talked about grace and that we're one step from grace. And I know my scripture. I know scripture, but I'm not a preacher. But I always go back to, in these dark times, including my own journey, this last year and a half has probably been one of the most difficult years I've ever gone through, with changing of who I am, my relationships, my career. But I always have been able to fall back on the words of scripture. And there's all sorts of great books out there from, if you're in Christianity, you have the Bible. If you're in another part of the world, you have Buddhism, you have Confucianism, you have Hinduism, you have Islam, you have the Quran. There's a lot of knowledge and wisdom out there. A lot of them, a lot of the religions talk about the same thing. And I'm a world religion guy. I was raised Catholic. I don't follow Catholicism anymore. That's just one aspect of religion. But what I'm trying to say is the messages all relate when it comes to, uncertainty, uncertain times. Some people call this the end. I don't personally believe this is the end. There's going to be a change with what we're going through in the next 10 years. This decade of our roaring 20s, I have predicted long that I still believe in the great coming together. I still believe in sustainability. I still believe in self-mastery, homeostasis, things where people are saying this is enough, whether it's from equality to people that are very rich and people that are very poor. This roaring 20s of ours that I talked about last year and the year before that is our roaring 20s, and we started off with a pandemic, and we're getting ready for extensive space travel. In June, the Pentagon has to release what they know about UFOs, intelligence other than our own as far as humans. I've been talking about this for 3 years. And of course, people are going to call you a spook or a crazy guy, but they're going to have to disclose by law what they know about unidentified flying objects, ufology. That doesn't mean little green man on the White House lawn, but it will change the conversation. It will be a paradigm shift come June. They have to release by law, the Pentagon has to disclose unclassified information about what they know about what we call metamaterial, element 115, full disclosure, UFOs, unidentified flying phenomenon. And I think that's going to be a conversation changer, because if we start to realize that there is intelligence in this universe, and what science has shown us and what science has taught us, it's going to start to help us see us as a people, I would hope. Start to, like I said, address some of the racisms that we have that have been long part of this country for over 400 years. This country has gone through a civil war based on racism, and the country was divided. I don't know if it's changed much over time in that ideology and that belief system, but we're seeing it. And I always remind people, if you have a Black friend and you don't understand their pain right now, you don't have a Black friend. You just simply know a Black person. And this is a time where we need to stand up. Black lives matter, yes. And I know people will say all lives matter. We know that. But there is a systemic breakdown in society when it comes to, just even housing in poor communities, access to stores and good food. There's a lot that's being brought to the surface, and that can be uncomfortable and painful. But at the same time, transformation is usually not an easy process. I always talk about the caterpillar becoming the butterfly in my readings and my articles, because I always go back to the laws of nature. Nature's our greatest teacher, our greatest inspirer, our greatest engineer. This vaccine has long been a part of nature. The vaccine that's being rolled out, my wife just got vaccinated. I'm about to get vaccinated. These aren't anything new. They've been working on the DNA strands, mRNA strands for years, over a decade, even all the way back to the first bird flu. And yeah, there's going to have variances, and there's going to be, certain times where, science will not always get it right, but the only thing that refutes science is better science. And, if you go back from history, you'll realize that vaccinations helped us through many, many great trials and tribulations, including polio, including smallpox, including, I had to get my tetanus shot. So you're always going to have people that believe one thing and other people that believe another. That's what history has shown me as a student of history. So this really comes down to you and what feels right to you, your discernment, your intuition. But at the same time, I know that there's a lot of hurting and uncertain times out there. And this is where, prayer becomes important. Your knowledge of, whatever your belief system is. I never tried to put my belief on somebody else. That was really done to me early on and in my early teenage years, that I had to believe a certain way or I had to follow a certain path. And I don't follow that path anymore. But there is a lot of wisdom and knowledge and hope in Scripture. Like I said, I know my Scripture, but I'm not a preacher. So when the times are uncertain, sometimes getting on our knees can be very difficult, but as that's the one position that you can really find grace. And that song that I was listening to was about we're one step from grace. And I believe in us. I believe in the advances of how far we've come as a society, as a species. There may be some, breakouts of violence that we see that we're continuing to see with the rise of these mass shootings. We may have a civil war of ideologies standing up for what is right and moral versus what's not right and immoral. And that's been a long part of our history. But I believe that what we're going to cram in this next decade of our roaring 20s, from science to space exploration to robotics to artificial intelligence, to just the things that we look at our planet and realize that this is our home. And if we don't start taking care of it, things are going to change drastically for many, many people. I always go back to what Seneca, the great philosopher, talked about. And he said, ignorance is the cause of fear. And there seems to be a lot of ignorance out there. Now, I don't call people ignorant, but sometimes I do call their rhetoric and their debating ignorant, because they're just going by what they saw on YouTube or what they see on social media, which is a big part of this problem, is misinformation, and not agreeing on facts. And if you can't agree that 2 + 2 = 4 with somebody, then I always recommend don't continue the conversation. If people can't agree that the world is round, because there are some people out there that still believe the world is flat. It would be very uncomfortable if we looked at our universe and everything that we see is reflection of through, I was just looking at the moon last night through my telescope. And if everything is round and the earth is for some reason an anomaly and is the flat one out of the entire galaxy, that's kind of an uncomfortable situation. But, it just shows you what people believe and what they follow and what they're reading or hearing. And I always say, did you really do your research? My niece was just talking about this. She had a great post. I wish I had it in front of me. I would talk about it, because people are like, I researched that. And it's like, did you really research the actual topic? Did you actually get into the sourcing? Did you get actually into the experts that are doing these recommendations based on this knowledge? A lot of people, look at their sourcing, or I research this as something they saw on Facebook or something they watched on YouTube, and that's not researching. So as I move forward this year with my platforms, whether I'm on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, I've really tried to change my platforms to be platforms of positivity and talk about inspirational stuff. I had a run last year. It was a tough year for me, like I said, from politics to pandemics, changing of relationships, but also transformation of my goal and my role of who I am. And just realizing that I am one step from grace. And, I had to move into some hard topics of my past, but address those through grace, through forgiveness, through some tough discussions with people, including family and some friends. Lost some friendships and families along the way through all this, but you can always come back to grace. You can always come back to forgiveness and healing. I always talk about what John Locke talked about, the famous poet and writer. He talked about what worries you masters you. And I know that there's a lot of worries out there right now and a lot of uncertainty. And today's message is hurting and uncertain. People are feeling hurting. People are feeling uncertain. But I'm here for today's show in what we call the magic in the moment, because we can't go back and we can't change our past. And the future is not guaranteed. So we can focus on the now, the right now, the present moment. And today we're talking about hope and grace. We are one step away from grace. If we choose that, it has to be a choice. We have to make that choice, because that's your greatest power, is your free will and your choice to do so. It's funny. I don't know if you guys notice this, but when you're going through something in life, we were watching Star Trek Discovery last night, and there was a lot of messages over the weekend about what I needed to hear and what's going on currently in my personal life. And it's just funny how the messages you hear or the things that pop up and you're like, God, I really needed to hear that. And a lot of the messages, I really start to wonder if The Matrix, if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, I'm starting to wonder if The Matrix was actually a documentary, not a movie. I know that's kind of sounds, if you've never seen The Matrix, but if you have, you get what I'm saying. It's like, you know, if our focus does determine our reality, and I'm getting all these things, sometimes I get the messages through my social media accounts, what I'm watching through a television show, and I'm like, God, that's really relevant to me right now. And the messages that I needed to hear about moving forward and letting go and moving into forgiveness and grace and having that hope that the messages that I saw about, you know, my predictions, you know, I don't get into the gloom and doom. I know some people do. I'm not that person. I'm not going to tell you the winning lottery numbers. Spirit world doesn't care about money. I'm not going to tell you when you die, because that's your own personal soul contract. But there are things that I see ahead that, whether they're visions, dreams, meditations, just a sense of claircognizance, which is a sense of knowing. And there's still some trying days ahead. We're going to still have COVID into 2022. We're going to have pockets of it. But as people get vaccinated and we get into herd immunity, there will always be resistance. History's taught us that. But eventually, COVID will move. It'll be in our society for a few more years. It will pop up, variances will change. But nature's also talking to us. Nature is warning us about our planet and the home that we have, and being stewards for the generations behind us and not doing a very good job. And I believe that the great coming together is going to be a great transformation and that awakening that started back in 2019. If you go from a numerology standpoint, numerology started about the year of the 3, which is a universal number. If you follow Nikola Tesla, he always talked about the powers of 3, 6, and 9. But in 2019, that was the year of the 3. And I knew 2020 was going to be pretty much a shit show in the fact that it's called the master builder, the dedicated worker. I knew things were going to start to crumble and implode on themselves, so we could move into this year, which is 2021, which is known as the year of freedom, love, adventure. And then next year in 2022, a lot of 2 energy, which represents peace, is the year of the 6, also known as personal responsibility and self-care. And we're going to move that way, but along the path, there will be outbreaks, there will be conflicts, there might even be some sort of war. I don't think it's going to be a war in the fact of like boots on the ground kind of war. I think it's going to be more of this cyber warfare, attacks on the grids. You know, this conflict that seems to be rising with China, this conflict that seems to be rising within the United States and ideologies, and you know, the bigger government's going to take our guns, and they're not going to take our guns, and the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. But it's also going to help us to understand that the Constitution that we were founded on will have to evolve, will have to change. And, you know, people will resist change until they're finally put upon them, and then they embrace the change, and then they fight for the new change. That's what I've come to understand as well. But the only thing consistent in life, you guys, is change. And if you're up with that and you have knowledge of that, that helps you to see the positivity moving forward and where we're going. I do believe that we can be, you know, like what Gene Roddenberry talked about in Star Trek, federations. We start to move out into space. We're explorers. We have been known. I'm the Intuitive Prospector. I'm all about prospecting, exploring new things. I don't know everything, but I'm always willing to discover it, whether it's in nature, whether it's going down in a dive in the ocean. I hope to, maybe in my age, I get to go to space. I don't know if I'll make that cusp, if you will. But we're all about explorers. And I feel when we explore and we learn about our world, we can inflect and reflect on who we are. You know, it's Sigmund Freud talked about this, and he said being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. And I think this last year, we've all had to be honest with ourselves. Like I said, whether it comes to addressing racism, systemic racism, that is a real thing, bigotry, misogyny, anti-Semitism, fascism. We had to address a lot of these issues, and some agree with it and others stand up to it, because there's a right and there's a wrong, there's a moral standard and a moral fiber and a golden compass and a golden rule, and then there's the opposite of that. So it really is the balance. If you go to Star Wars, it literally is the dark versus the light, the Jedi versus the Sith. But in the end, I believe in hope and grace, and that light will conquer dark always. And I always go back to scripture. I have a couple different Bibles that I look at. You know, I read into Corinthians and Psalms, and you know, like I said, I know scripture, but I'm not a preacher. But there are many books I've been reading on my table here. You can see those 3 books there. That's the memoirs of General Grant during the Civil War, and that's also the autobiography, the original first editions of Abraham Lincoln's memoirs, and what he talked about during these trials and tribulations and these very changing, transforming times that we're going through. But remember, we take it one day at a time. Patience is also a part of grace. Things will start to get better. I predicted by May and June, which is next month, and the month after, we'll start to see this change. But the world will always have violence. The world will always have its chaos. It's really about what you choose to follow and what you choose to see and hear and be a part of. And again, a big part of it is your focus does determine your reality. One of the things I like to do, I just got my next batch of Lavender Love up and ready. It's going to my local store. So just trying to spread the love. So this morning I'm going to spray a little bit of Lavender Love. Nice aromatherapy. I grow the lavender right here in my garden, and then I process it, make it all organic, sell it at the local store. So just trying to spread love. And remember, not everybody's going to love you back. Some people will actually rebel against you. I was talking to my wife about this, in the fact that, you know, people usually have one of three things. What you do is a threat to them, or what we like to say, your angels disrupts or ruffles their demon's feathers. Not everybody's a demon, though. I'm just kidding when I say that. But again, what you do may be a threat to somebody. They're just an unhappy person, or they want to be like you. And, you know, just try to be the better version of yourself. Be in competition with yourself. That's why I tell people, you can't compete with me, because I want to see everybody be successful. I want to see everybody be healthy. And the reason I can say that is because this journey for me, this path has been quite difficult this last year and a half. But as I emerged to this other side, I realized that I am meant to be an inspirer. I am meant to be on these platforms of positivity and encouraging and helping and transforming, being the life coach, being a spiritualist, being a psychic or a medium, whatever that, you know, whatever I am to be, whatever label that, whatever hat I'm going to wear. It's all about being in service and helping others and believing in the magic, believing in the science, believing in the pseudoscience, which is pseudoscience is you can't prove it, but you can't disprove it either. And this next decade for us, these roaring 20s are going to be powerful, transformative, painful. So have flexibility, be like bamboo, be strong like bamboo. A bamboo is strong, but yet flexible. Don't let life break you. And again, there's a lot of hurting and uncertain going on, and the days ahead will really ramp up to be more hurting and uncertain. But in the end, if we lean into grace, if we lean into hope, if we lean into forgiveness, that's part of the transformation. And like Rage and Bone Man was singing, I wish I could play it on the Facebook, but they'll mute me because of copyright laws. So I can't do that. But you can look up his song Grace, because we really are one step from grace. So this morning I thought about the messages, what I was going to give you. I like to give you a crystal or a spirit totem animal. So the spiritual career, this is kind of where we're going. Spiritual career, this is next year as well. So 7 is truth, 8 is manifestation. 7 plus 8 equals 15. If you break 15 down, that's next year, the year of the 6, which is, so if you're thinking about a spiritual career, a spiritual opening, a spiritual awakening, moving into, maybe your life is rough this year. Maybe this last year, this pandemic and these differences of opinions have changed you to start looking for something bigger and better in your life, for more peace. So the crystal I picked for this week is called Zoisite, Zoisite, and it transmutes negative energies into positive ones, and it connects to the spiritual realm. So it's called Zoisite, Zoisite. Check that out. Spiritual career as we move into next year, taking negative energy and turning that into positive energy and connecting to the spiritual world. We're going to get ready for the Healing Cafe. I probably will do a nice meditation with the singing bowl. I just want to say thank you for tuning in today, and I'll just leave you with this final message of what you can allow for yourself. And this morning, I allow myself to learn what I need to learn. I love that. Look at the brain, this brain up here. Neuroplasticity, the world. The feathers actually represent hope and peace. And again, the Bible, scripture, whatever book you want to read. And it doesn't have to be the Bible. It can also be just a book that really resonates with you, that brings knowledge and wisdom and education, because we know through all of that, that's how we get to a sense of enlightenment. So I just want to say thank you for hanging out with me, drinking the coffee, drinking the tea, drinking the protein shake. We'll get ready for the Healing Cafe. I just want to remind everybody, I will be back on the air this week and next week for Inspired Living Radio. I am happy to announce that sorry, my music's out. I'm happy to announce that Inspired Living Radio, after our 6th season of being on the air, we've been picked up by some major platforms. So that's been really cool to be a part of that after 6 seasons, to be have the podcast picked up through, we're now on Spotify. You can find us on YouTube, iTunes, Castbox, Podbean, Deezer, Podchaser, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Podcast Addict, Spreaker, Geo Savan. I'm new to that one. That one's a new one. And of course, Om Times Radio, where you can catch all the archives. And we're going to have GP Walsh, who's a really well-known spiritual teacher, on this week. And then next week, I'm going to be talking about a very cool spiritual topic, the pineal gland, I believe is what I'm going to talk about. So next 2 weeks, I will be on the air for Inspired Living Radio. That's an internet-based show. It's not. It's called Inspired Living, but it's broadcast through the internet, and then it goes to podcast on all those platforms that I just announced. I think it's cool to be on Spotify because I listen to Spotify all the time, and now I'm on Spotify, so that's really humbling and cool at the same time. But check out the past 6 seasons. We've covered everything from medicine to metaphysics to mediumship and everything in between and beyond, and of course science. Just had a professor on from Stanford, but we'll be talking this Wednesday, which will be my birthday. So I'm going to be 49 years around the planet this Wednesday. So I'll be on the air talking about that, celebrating life, celebrating spiritualism. So I hope that you'll join me. And if you're interested, I also have an event coming up in June, a demonstration of mediumship, and a lot of events coming up this fall that are already planned and into 2022. So you'll want to go to marclainhart.com, click on the events tab, and you can see all the links, the tickets, the pricing, the events that are coming up, some demonstrations of mediumship, and some soul guidance, and some workshops in Seattle here starting next year. So just wanted to share that with you. Again, have a great rest of your day. It's really sunny here in Seattle, so I'm going to be outside after the show doing some more yard work, and have a reading this afternoon. But again, I know there's a lot of hurting and uncertain out there, but if you focus on what you want, focus on the good, again, you always have that choice. You can focus on the positivity or the negativity. You can be the pessimistic or the optimist. It's really up to you where you want to go. But I'm going to focus on, as we move forward with all this chaos and all this uncertainty, I'm going to stay one step away from grace and move into grace, forgiveness, transformation, healing, positivity, carpe diem, all the good things that are a part of our journey. So thank you for hanging out with me. I'll get ready for the Healing Cafe, get your questions ready, and I'll top off my coffee, and I'll see you here in just a few minutes. Again, you can always catch this show over on YouTube as well. This will be loaded to my YouTube channel. So thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Until our next soul adventure together, be kind, be caring, be compassionate, and most importantly, especially in these uncertain times, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live, and discover that diamond within. I'll see you next week for Metaphysical Mocha Mondays here on the Intuitive Prospector channel. Have a great day, everybody. Namaste.